the trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite. Forget it, man, and get with the countdown. Shake this square world and blast off for Kicksville.
Hi, I'm Late and Grumpy, and welcome to Hanging Loose podcast with Spicy Boy and not Shanked, because that fucker has an excuse every time we go to record. In this case, a family member had a baby. Congratulations to them. Joining me today in his place is the real RV3. And we are, of course...
Hanging loose, baby. What's up, Spicy?
He's just jumping in and saying stuff. We are, of course, brought to you by Great Lakes Disc. I don't have my normal little thing over here, so that's the shout out y'all are going to get. Please check the ticker on the bottom. I'll give you 30 seconds to read it.
You can use code Hanging Loose and get 10% off at checkout. Thank you to
All right.
Great Lakes Disc for sponsoring the podcast. Please use our code for 10% off.
All right, Nico should have putted by now. Nico should have putted by now. I think in all actuality, that was maybe like 18 seconds. So we're still waiting. Yeah, it's been an interesting couple weeks. We've been bouncing around on days, trying to figure out a better schedule for the three of us, because it gets a little dicey sometimes with
it's tough because
and jobs and weekends.
You're a very popular guy and a very, very hard to nail down. Because you're a host of multiple trivia nights, running around doing stuff for Terry, and then the other guy that's usually here, Shanked, he's also a really busy guy. He moved. He's got a bunch of family. I have neither, so I'm free all the time. Except I don't like to edit on Fridays because I like to have a Friday night. You know what I mean?
I like to DoorDash and get up to date on all my OnlyFans pages.
Right, yeah. When else am I going to do that? So
that's what Friday nights are for. Should call it Only Fridays. But
yeah, I mean, listen, we're heading in a good direction, I think, now, and we just need to nail down, like I've been telling the two of you almost since the beginning. Let's not do it like, try and get one in the can so we can release them, and then we're not having to crush the schedule. But, listen, we'll get out the kinks worked out. We're only 21 episodes in out of, 50 million. So
I think, is it 21?
Yeah, this is episode 21.
Oh, all right. Excuse me. RV3 cut that. Yeah. I think we should really just devote an upcoming day in the next month to let's record 5. And then we always have one or two that are there that we can drop if we need to.
Yeah. The thing is you got to kind of keep them keep topical. Current events. Yeah. You can't really talk about current events, which is fine.
So we'll knowingly let our guests, we'll make them aware of that, and then we will make many dated jokes do you see that O.J. Simpson trial? Just fucking dumb stuff. So I heard you say earlier that you have a great story time for today, which I'm excited for. I don't know when our guest gets in here. You're the producer, so you're going to have to tell me when he rolls in.
Yep, not here yet, so we're good.
Okay, perfect. So then fire away on story time.
So,
and if he joins in the middle of it, he can wait.
Yeah. So as most of you know, I run a shop called disclab.io, and we had our first in-person vending. And so we had a tent and a couple tables set up at a local XC tier or CX, whichever order that goes in. Really cool event. We had a lot of people stop by and buy a bunch of plastic, and bought a Pixel for myself because I hadn't had one yet and hadn't thrown it. Been throwing it like a madman. They're pretty great. So we had a great day there, and met a lot of really cool people that help support the local disc golf scene and help support the shop. So if you were there, thank you so much. I did shout out the podcast a couple times saying, hey, don't forget to check out the Disc Lab produced podcast, Hanging Loose, available on Spotify and YouTube. And I don't think any of them will get any click through on those probably.
Are you just making
but you never know.
The disclab.io produced.
Yeah.
The Infinite Discs produced by MVP Chain City Open.
Well, yeah, it's sponsored by Great Lakes Disc, but it's produced by Disc Lab.
No, I always love when they do that with any event, not even just disc golf, but when there's like 4 sponsor names in one event title, and you're like, what the hell am I even watching? Is this a NASCAR race?
Pretty much.
Speaking
in 4 years, disc golf jerseys are going to look like NASCAR cars.
Well, I mean, to be honest, the jersey that I have that I still need to get from Tommy Guns, the third, Lil Guns, as we call him, it looks like a grocery list. It's awful.
Well, the one you sent, the one you guys had a podcast on from, you did one of Fountain Hills, I think, or something.
Mm-hmm.
You had and it was on the shirt.
Fountain Hills was OTB, my OTB Open polo that I have.
Okay. So anyway, there was one where you had the logo on the shirt, and there was a lot of other stuff on the shirt. It was like a purple one, and it was like kind of small and on the bottom.
Let me see if I can find it. I own 2 purple disc golf shirts. One I don't have yet. It's my jersey from Team
I'm
OTB.
just going to find a picture.
And then my OTB Open one doesn't have anything on it. It has one logo on the chest and one logo on the back. Speaking of logos on things, I would like to give a personal shout out and thank you to Project Reactor. Our good friends over there, Ricky's apparel company that he started with some folks. They were kind enough to give Shanked and I unprompted. We did not ask. We did not expect. We just wanted to have them on the show. They gave us the shirts. Again, I wore it to work. I got lots of compliments on it. And RV3 still doesn't have one. So I am even more elated to talk about it a second time. But yeah, good stuff.
That's okay. I have one of these.
MVP OTB?
Yeah, this is last year's staff shirt. Wait, hold on.
Oh, I have loads of staff shirts from Discraft, so it's,
Yeah, but it's not from Maple Hill.
Yeah, because I don't live there.
Same.
How many Vista del Camino shirts do you own?
Where's that on the top 100?
Actually, I think it was Simon's Dream Hole 1 was the one at Fountain Hills. And he's Maple Hills boy, so that shuts you right the fuck up.
Listen,
that was great.
I don't hear about that being. I don't hear about Vista del Camino being a bucket list course for a lot of other people. I do hear a lot about Maple Hill being a bucket list course. So, well, I'll just leave it at that.
I just got one more thing, and that is
good. One more thing, and then we'll bring in our guest.
Oh, splendid! We can get his take. Because he's got 40 plus years in disc golf, which is not a common thing to run into. What was the very first disc golf shot that was ever on ESPN? Because it wasn't Maple Hill. It was Nate Doss getting an ace at Fountain Hills.
I mean, it's...
Okay.
I guess if that's what you want to hang your hat on, I'll let you take it.
I'm just saying. more of the world has seen Vista than has seen or Fountain, either or, than has seen Maple Hill.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
All right. Get him in. Oh, looks like my dad at the Hall of Fame right there with that face. Welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am splendid. We are very appreciative that you were able to get in here on such short notice, because not even we know what the hell we're doing most of the time. So,
That's my alley.
I think somebody on Twitter today said somebody mentioned they couldn't be on because they had to work, and somebody said they really should give you more time. And I was like, oh, thanks for the heads up. So introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Admittedly, I'm lackadaisical on the knowledge, so I'm excited. 40 plus years is not, like I said, something that's very common.
Yeah. When I was a kid, my dad loved playing Frisbee, going back to the 60s. And so he got us, when I say us, my sisters and I, playing Frisbee golf around the neighborhood, throw the disc and hit someone's tree or mailbox. And then the summer that I turned 10, which was 1979, my parents moved to a new community, didn't know anybody. And I would, go out and throw the disc and other things. And then the next year, there was a park within about a mile of where I lived that had baskets. And I could ride down and play this Frisbee golf game with these newfangled baskets. And so I've been playing since then. And it was, I don't know, probably 1985 or 86. We were out there. I was in high school, saw a disc in the water, jumped in and got it. And it was an actual golf disc, which we had never seen before. And then there wasn't too much longer after that we started diving to find discs in the creek, because nobody was putting names on them at that time, so there was no pressure to return them. And been playing regularly ever since.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's insane.
4.5 years. So for you to have literally 10 times the amount of experience that I do is blanabas. I really wish I could have been a fly on the wall of your brain when you found a golf disc for the very first time after only having thrown Frisbees.
That's the thing I want to get back to. You're playing object Frisbee golf, not disc golf. You're playing object Frisbee golf. And then
the one time we're allowed to say
and then you jump to basket Frisbee, and then you jump to basket disc, which is an insane adventure to go on. And then thinking about how far it's come since then to now, where it's like 75, 80 different manufacturers of discs, and the crazy amounts of different baskets.
Well, when I messaged with you earlier today, I was out on my home course, and I had decided that I was going to go all old school. So I put a bag together that was only oversized Innova discs made prior to 1993. And
interesting.
Yeah, I had 2 Zephyrs, 2 Condors, a Jaguar, a Lynx, and a Scorpion.
Wow.
And I actually shot even, which was pretty good. 3 bogeys and 3 birdies with all old school plastic.
I've only ever thrown the more newly released Condors, so the other ones I have had zero experience with.
I think that it's the exact identical mold.
Oh, well, I just haven't had the opportunity to handle one from the OG run. You know what I mean? It's my buddy Timbo's big gimmick disc guy. So anytime oversized grooves in the top, different, whatever, he always orders it. So I've thrown that a couple times, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I love old school plastic. I do carry a Zephyr in my bag regularly, and that
was going to be my next question. Is what? Because everybody has one, right? Where like, this is the one disc that I have that I just never going to leave my bag. I've had it for, since I've started or shortly thereafter. You throw it really well.
Yeah.
And so is that the Zephyr for you? Is that the kind of one that you kind of look at and you're like, yeah, this is my golf disc?
The Zephyr, and I have an XD that I got at a tournament in 1989 that I still carry. Those are the two old discs, and I think they're the. And then I have a putter that a friend of mine picked up at the 1992 Amateur World Championships that were held in Indianapolis, Indiana, and that's my turnover inside the woods when I need to hit a specific line on a backhand turnover disc. So it doesn't get thrown regularly; it gets thrown every couple of rounds.
That's pretty fun. I got to throw a couple of those lines for the first time when I played up in Cooperstown. I was like, everyone will forever call Fountain Hills and Vista the Heiser Fest type of course. So having to learn those lines, I would imagine, makes you a much better golfer much faster.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've never been a great disc golfer. You know,
same.
when I played a lot of tournaments, so back when I started playing tournaments in the late 80s, I played regularly from about tournaments from 87 till about 94. And the PDGA, they had one event per club or state a year. And there was no reason to join the PDGA unless you wanted to play in the Worlds. Because all the tournaments were local, right? So I played the Minnesota Summer Tour and the Minnesota Doubles Tour and the Minnesota Winter Tour, all of their events for years and years. And when you played these PDJ events, you paid whatever, I think it was maybe only $5 additional. Maybe it was 10. It's hard to remember if you weren't a member, but the only reason to join was to earn points to go to the Worlds, and the Worlds didn't fill. So even if you joined, you could still play the Worlds because they never had a full field.
That sounds laughable in today's disc golf realm. It's like, you know, my local B tier up the street fills within 2 days of registration even opening. So when I just have your list of things you wanted to talk about, and we are already on the topic of old school discs, and you wrote old school courses. How would you define an old school course?
Well, so my thought on old school courses, they were in parks, scattered trees. They had walking paths in them. And it wasn't so much talking about the old school courses in general as much as some of the old school courses that are still around today that still host sanctioned events. Maybe we should think that again. And I know I'm in the minority in my community where I live in South Carolina with this. But, you know, where I live in a county of 70,000 people, and we have 5 or 6 disc golf courses. And some of them are so old school that literally when you're on a tee, you need to have somebody looking back during a tournament because you might get hit by a high-speed driver coming in at you because the tee is within 30 feet of the basket. And I think it's just dangerous. I've played over 3 dozen courses that are no longer in the ground because somebody got hurt.
Wow.
Being hit by a disc.
That's a stat.
Yeah. The thing is it's going to keep on happening if people don't realize that you shouldn't be throwing a destroyer on a 250-foot hole where the next tee is 20 feet away.
For sure. There's a hole like that where my home course here in Phoenix is called Los Olivos. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure, but basically hole 4, especially if it's in the long position, is down a row of trees and literally 1 row of trees over, which it's very easy to pull a backhand, is the tee pad for 5. And so it's, you know, I will say that our course is generally not busy enough to where you're always going to run into somebody, but during the hours it is busy, you got to be loud with the 4s because I don't have a 13 speed arm by any stretch of the imagination. So if I'm throwing a high speed disc, it's because I want to skip, or if it has a ton of glide, or if it's very understable, I'll throw that just so that I can, get a few extra feet, but it's not. I never do it when there are people on the tee pad because I'm not sponsored for my disc golf play. I'm sponsored for my jokes. So,
well, we have a course. So I live in the very northwest part of South Carolina, right where North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia come together. And we put in a course back in 2018 that we call the Champ. We call it the Seneca Champ course. And the club cleared a lot of land and did a tremendous amount of work over a couple of years to get this course in the ground. And then the city came in and did a walking path right through the course, right along all the holes.
Great.
Because we did the work, but now you have to be on the lookout. Now, granted, the walking trails don't get used that much, but they do get used some. And they never should have done that. I mean, it's just dangerous. It's a great course, but you always have to be on the lookout because there are people that do that. When I played tonight at the course by where I live, the high school had their cross-country practice going on through the course.
Yep, that happens at Los Olivos because Camelback High School is about a block away. And I won't say that the cross-country team practices, but the kids walk through the park after they get out of school. So they get out at 3 o'clock. I'm off work at 3 o'clock. A lot of the time I show up for my rounds, there's groups, 4, 5, 6 kids either walking, standing on their phones, and they're not paying attention. We affectionately refer to them as zombies when we're playing. But for the most part, we're pretty open, so voices carry. Like I can imagine in like dense woods, your voice isn't going to do anything if you're yelling 4 or whatever. But for us, it's pretty easy to warn folks. I mean, we did just hit a lady last week. I personally have never hit a person. I've been hit plenty of times, but it's just I don't know. I'm sure my time is coming.
Well, I hope it doesn't happen because you don't want it to happen.
No, of course not. But I just, pure percentages wise, I hope if it does, it's minimal. I don't want to Eagle McMahon somebody, but that is my favorite clip to show people when they ask if getting hit by a disc hurts. I go, let me show you something real quick. And then I pull out the Eagle grenade.
Well, yeah, so you talk about the Eagle grenade. Jake Wolf. You've seen him play.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Jake Wolf and his brother Ben, they live just 10 minutes north of me, right? So we live in the same community. I was spotting at a tournament last fall, or maybe it was last spring, a year ago this May, I guess, so about a year ago. And it's a blind hole. And my job was where that blind hole was, it was hole 4, but people were transitioning from hole 9 to hole 10 right behind there. So my job was to let people know when discs were incoming if they were transitioning. And so you could see them finish hole 3. So I seen them walk away, that eventually they're going to be throwing down where I was spotting. Sure. I didn't realize it was one of the 2 Wolf brothers that throw those overhands. And all of a sudden,
you didn't even see it.
I couldn't while I was in the woods.
Right.
I couldn't see anything, and I heard something hit the branches, and that literally missed me by this much. Literally by a half a foot from clocking me right in the head. And it came down so hard that if it had hit me, I would have been in the hospital.
It's wild. It's especially, like we were talking about high-speed drivers. Those ones have that sharp edge. They'll bust you up easy.
You see what they do to the trees when you hit them? Like, come on.
Yeah. It's always interesting, or I think they're kind of like train wrecks in a way that you throw it and you're like, is that gonna so I try and as soon as the thought even enters my brain, I'm screaming forward because I don't I was playing. Go ahead.
We have a unique situation at my home course where there's a cricket pitch. And it's a fairly popular cricket pitch. It's apparently the highest quality cricket pitch on the eastern seaboard. Apparently, this was all news to us when we put in the disc golf course. And so on Saturdays, it's a pretty popular place, and they're hole 1 and 2 kind of like run alongside it, and people will walk through the 2 holes to kind of get over there. And then sometimes they'll just camp out on the edge because that's where the edge of the cricket pitch is. It's kind of like where the disc golf course starts. And so there'll just be kind of like 2-3 people sitting, like if you throw deep, you might hit somebody. And there was a couple sitting there one day, and one of my buddies who's a little bit got a higher arm speed than the rest of us. And sure enough, he threw one out there and it bounced off the lady's chair. And she was acting like she got like
shot.
Hit. Yeah, she was very upset that we hit her chair. So it's just nuts.
It's always an uneasy feeling for sure. The tournament I played in that we sponsored, the guy behind us threw and hit my girlfriend at the time. She had like a bun, hit her bun.
You told this story on the podcast, yeah.
And if it had hit her, she'd have been toast. And he didn't. There was no four. There was not. And it's a dead line of sight between him and us. And he was just like,
not even a sorry. My bad.
Yeah, he didn't come up and apologize or anything. We were like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what are you doing? I'm excited to get into some of the other things that you mentioned, because having your perspective on it, having had zero of it, and then having to learn things is going to be so fun to listen to. So I want to talk about ratings. When, if ever, did ratings become an important thing for you in your disc golf career? Because they had to be introduced relatively late in the game.
All right. So ratings, I think the PDGA started doing their ratings for everyone about 1997 is when ratings became the first time they were being used. But, Chuck Kennedy, who is the one who came up with the rating system, the algorithms that is still used today, is so I am from Minnesota. That's where I learned to play disc golf. Now, I think he's from Ohio, but Chuck lived in Minnesota. And both Chuck Kennedy and I and several other people on the Minnesota Frisbee Association board back in the early 90s, we listened to Chuck talk on and on and on about ratings. And he was running his algorithms for Minnesota Frisbee Association tournaments to get it to the point where it actually worked.
Right.
So, I was there at the beginning hearing him talk about ratings and how they worked. And, it wasn't so much about the course as it was about the competition. And the ratings is what really drove the growth of the PDGA, because not everybody goes to play in a big event where you need to be invited, but everybody wants to know their rating.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Regardless what your goal in the sport is, everybody seems to care. I care what my rating is, and my rating is horrible. It's like right now it's like 8 something, right? It's like 826 or something, I think.
I think that's my exact rating. So thank
I
you.
don't have one.
Total confidence.
But, so all of my kids play disc golf. I got 3 kids, 18, 19, and 27. The 18 and 19-year-old are active PDJ members, and they play a lot of events. They care about ratings. If they're playing a tournament and they're playing bad, they're worried more about the rating than they are about how they finished.
That's insane to me, because you hear so often now where, it's ratings don't matter, they don't work. It's like, and at the pro level, that's probably true because they're blowing them out of the water. But at the amateur level, like there's every time, kind of like with what you just said, they care. Like there's people that are, and Spicy, I'm sure you're the same way. I don't have one, so I don't check it ever. But there's people that are like super excited to check out their new
8th of
rating when ratings day comes out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can look at all of my scores, and I can figure out what my rating is going to be within a point or two before they come out.
Yeah.
And I can do that with my son, figure out what his rating is going to be. The thing about ratings that I don't like is, so a local course here that has not changed in 10 years, it runs 4 or 5 PDJ events a year, and ratings have been for a round of 50. All right. So it's 4 under, so every hole's a par 3 for a round of 50. ratings have been as low as 895 and as high as 943 with comparable weather. That's a really big spread of points when you're talking between 60 and 90 people playing a tournament at the same course over 10 years.
Yeah, it's almost 100 point difference.
It's about 50-point difference.
Oh yeah, sorry. That's yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's why he produces and doesn't do the math.
Yeah. Now I had a round earlier this year where the weather was windy and particularly bad, and I played the best round I've ever played at that course, and I rated like 924. But that round at that course, the last 10 tournaments before that one would have rated about 850. It's just that everybody shot horrible, and I happened to shoot about 3 or 4 better than normal. So I was happy to hit my 924, but I didn't deserve a 924.
Great. Kyle, Spicy, did you have Kyle on the screen? I looked down and that's the first thing I saw. Spicy, did you have another ratings question? Because I have a different thing I want to ask, but I don't want to take away if you have another ratings thing.
No, I was just excited to hear his perspective on ratings and kind of like, what did you use before ratings?
Yeah, that was along the same lines, but go ahead.
So the back years ago, you had open. It wasn't MPO. It was called open. That's all it was open. And then you had AM1 and AM2. And the basic thing was, if you've never played an event before, you played AM2, and you played in that until either A, you wanted to move up to AM1 or you won an event. Once you won an event, you were expected to move up. And that's just how it was. The Masters started at age 35. And there was not these 5 year, because now we have 40, 50, 55, 60, 65. It was over 35. That was Masters age. And I don't know when they moved it from 35 to 40. And I don't know when they added the 5-year difference. Now I'm 54. I'll be 55 later this year, so I can play an AM55. And I'd rather play an AM55 than AM50 with my skill level. But these younger guys that run events, I don't know why we have to have it. Well, you don't know until you're that age.
Right.
When you get older, it makes sense why they have that 5-year break. But when you're younger, it doesn't make sense to you. It's kind of like the young guys making fun of us old guys with our carts. We'll wait till the doctor tells you that you should have died, and you got to lose a bunch of weight. You know what? The cart makes a huge difference.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I have a cart. I use it. Yeah, I use as much as possible. It's
cart gang.
It's incredible. It allows you to play so much more. I don't think people realize how much more disc golf you can play when you don't have to pick up your bag every time you throw a disc.
Yeah, and the thing I love about the cart is I got one of those camera holders from Flight Towel that goes on the top of the cart, and I literally film 90% of my shots when I play.
Absolutely. I have a
GoPro that I have a bracket for my as well.
Yeah, I just have a mount for my phone, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I learn more from watching myself than I do from watching anybody else, because I can see what I do wrong. I don't know if I can fix it, but at least I know, well, man, I really suck.
I had used a similar tactic in my sex life. I think that transitions really well to your sandbaggers thing that you wrote, that there are no sandbaggers in disc golf. But you also just said once you win an event, you're expected to move up. So that seems kind of counterpointy to me.
Right. So my youngest son started a disc golf business last year, and I guess I'm partners with him, and it's called JAR Disc Golf, JARR, stands for Just Another Rated Round. We run 1-round events, $5. And we've done shotgun starts, and we've done flex starts, make your own, foursome, come out and play. It doesn't make a lot of money, but we do sell other things that do make some money for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you run the flex events, everybody complains that, well, if these guys are buddies and they're playing, there's no way they're all really that good as well as they shot. But yet, if these guys were playing a shotgun event and they win, everybody calls them sandbaggers because they should have moved up. So, I mean, what is it? You know, do you not trust them because they're going to say they shot better than they did, or if they win, they're sandbaggers? I mean, it doesn't work both ways.
Yeah, it's not a two-way street.
The people that cry sandbagger that are playing MA2 are the guys that are rated 875 and they're pissed at a guy rated 925-1. Well, if you're 875, play AM3, right? Play MA3, and then don't cry about somebody playing the division they're rated for winning when you're playing a division up. And that's who cries sandbagger. You know, I mean,
for sure.
Yeah,
and I think also in general, like, if I'm playing with three very good friends, I'm going to be a lot more relaxed. I'm going to have a lot more fun. I'm going to throw better shots.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if I got to play with the guy that tried to kill me because I told him I didn't want to trade pyro tags. So it makes total sense.
We ran an event on Memorial Day. And when we do these events, my son and I, one of us will play a really early tee time. And one of us plays the last tee time. I played a really early tee time on Monday. It was pouring rain. I mean, pouring rain. You can't get a grip. It's muddy. It's slick. I played horrible. But by, it was a 4-hour window from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. By noon, we were on hole, 12 or 13, and the rain had stopped. So people who were teeing up between 12:30 and 2, it was blue skies. It was still muddy, but it wasn't raining. And they all shot quite a bit better. So those of us that played early, we suffered, right? But if we started crying sandbagger to the guy that teed off at 1:30 when it was nice out, that's just not right,
For sure. I know at least in the Arizona scene that we have, there is a gentleman who shall remain nameless, but he plays MPO. When he plays any event in the state, he plays MPO. And then we have a small Friday nights at Freestone league that happens. I think it's the second Friday of every month, but it's a night league. You go out there and you play whatever. And I am not an MPO caliber player. I would never sign up for MPO.
You're not?
I know. Not on this amateur podcast. And I showed up to play. And he's like, there's two divisions. You have the pro division that plays these very easy holes, and then you have the AM division. And he signed up for AMs. And we're all playing at the same time. It's a shotgun start, I think, right? Isn't that the one where you all just go to different holes and start?
Yep.
And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to beat him. Like, why it's the same price to sign up for pro versus AM. And so, like, from that perspective where I'm not playing, it's not sanctioned. I'm not playing anything up, but it does feel like I'm getting sandbagged a little bit. And I have no chance to take home the $30 prize because he wanted it. Yeah.
I don't play a lot of tournaments other than the ones that I run with my son, but I do play occasionally. And I play AM 50 or AM 55. And, being rated where I'm at, if I want to play a tournament and I sign up for it, and then there's a guy signing up who's rated 950 playing AM 50, it is a little discouraging because I don't go in with the idea that I'm going to win, but I like to go in with the idea that if I play well, maybe I have a shot.
Right.
And
absolutely.
you see somebody who's rated more than 100 points above you, that's a little frustrating. But I understand the parameters. When people who say get rid of all the divisions, I disagree. The more divisions that you have, encourage more people to come out and play.
I fully support that statement.
Yeah, and the more people that play means the better chance we have of getting better coverage of the sport. I love watching. I mean, I've been playing disc golf my whole life. I watch podcasts every morning when I'm working out at the gym. I consume a lot of disc golf content, as do all my kids. I think the better we do growing it with viewership, the better off we are. And people are more likely to watch tournaments if they play tournaments.
Absolutely. Watching tournaments, I think the first genuine disc golf content I ever consumed was McBeth's 18 down at the toboggan.
Yep.
And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it was an immediate thing. And most actually genuinely today, a guy came up to me at work, because at work we have this break room, this huge TV and like snacks and stuff. And I'm fat. So that's where I spend all my time when I'm not working. So I was back there. I just had, I think, the Holy Shot documentary on. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of sitting there on my phone. I just had it on in the background. And the IT guy, his name's Rain, like the weather. If he ever sees this, he's going to laugh, because that's how he introduces himself. He comes in and he's like, what's this? And I was like, oh, it's a disc golf documentary. It's like the most important shot in history, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what? So he sat down, he watched like 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And that was maybe 7 or 8 months ago. And then he saw me at work today and he goes, hey, I was on this YouTube video and they were talking about like the most interesting feats ever in sports history. And I saw that guy that you were showing me, the disc golf guy. And I was like, well, it's not the disc golf guy. He's a different guy, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And there's so many people in my life that come up to me and they're like, hey, I saw this Frisbee thing and I thought of you. And I love that.
So on the topic of watching coverage, and obviously you've been around the sport a long time, going from throwing Frisbees, right, to watching Anthony Barella absolutely destroy a Venom at 80 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's right? Mind-numbing.
In that, at any point, did you think that it's ever going to be even as big as it is today at any point? Like in the early days when you were doing it, did you kind of have that vision, or was it, when did that kind of scope come in for you? Because obviously when you're throwing that fast and you're throwing that far, it's easy to put on a show, right?
Yeah.
But when Ken Climo's out there throwing 400 feet, and that's just as an amazing feat then as somebody throwing 500, 600, 700 feet now.
Well, I never thought it would get where it is today as far as the popularity. When people talk about, when are we going to get to the next level? Man, we're here now.
100%.
I have a 1992 PDGA course directory that I still have to this day. There's less than 300 courses in there, and it's supposed to be every course in the world, right?
Wow.
There wasn't a lot of disc golf. It just wasn't that popular. And, there are people, when I go back to visit my family in Minnesota, I might run into somebody I went to high school with or somewhere else, and they're like, you always talked about that Frisbee golf, man. Now I see it everywhere. Okay, but that was 35 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they remember me talking about it because I was, Terry Miller is the disc golf guy, but I was that person in, my suburbs of Minneapolis when I was in high school. It was just different. But you talk about like Anthony Barella throwing that far and what Calvin could do and what Eagle could do. I never even imagined people could do that kind of stuff. It's just, the sport's come an amazing way from where it was. But you mentioned about Anthony Barella, a little story about him. I don't really know him, but his girlfriend's family has a home on one of the lakes in our community. That's a retirement community. And not last year, but the year before. So before he was as well known as he is now, he was in our community for a month and a half playing disc golf every day. So here's this guy who says he's on the tour, and he's pretty darn good, but I'd never heard of him before, and it kind of makes me wish now that he's won some events and out there that maybe I had taken more of an opportunity to talk to this guy who was, in town for a short period of time, because that would have been kind of cool.
When you first saw that kind of turn, that shift in not only the popularity of the sport, but the Calvins, like what we were just talking about, the big distances, the showmanship of it. Were you put off by it, or were you like so beyond excited about it? What was your instant reaction to
the first? So I would go, and like the Minnesota Majestic's been around since the late 80s as one of the big tournaments. It used before the national tour, the disc golf pro tour, they had the super tour events that were held in the early 90s, like the Kansas City Wide Open and, Minnesota Majestic and a few others. Going down when top players would come to Minnesota and watching them play was the first time seeing really good people outside of my community. But the first time I saw a really big production, when my family moved to South Carolina in 2007, I ran a tournament and I bought a bunch of discs from Innova. And Innova's East Coast headquarters is about 2 hours from me. So I drove from here to Rock Hill and I picked up all the stuff for the tournament. And I got to talking to one of the guys. He said, you should come out and volunteer, for the USDGC, which I had heard of and, read about, but I didn't, follow it. So I came out and I volunteered for about 10 years as a spotter and the guy carrying the big scorecard around the course and watching all these great players. I mean, Kleinel was there and Barry Schultz and Will Schusterich and, the year that Nico won, the year that Steve Brinster won. I mean, I was right there volunteering, watching them play. And that was my first time really seeing it up close. And just absolutely amazed at how far and accurate people could throw. Hole 14 at the USDGC. Mm-hmm. I think it's 400 and some feet, but it's downhill. On my best day, I'm never going to reach that basket, even though it's downhill in that hole. And these guys are up there throwing mid-ranges and landing underneath the basket, or inside the circle. And to me, that was just absolutely amazing to witness that. But right now with the coverage, can the coverage on Disc Golf Network get better? It absolutely can get better. But man, how far has that come just in the last couple of years?
It's leaps and bounds better than it was.
Yeah. The only thing I think about the Disc Golf Network coverage, and they're better now than they were, is sometimes it feels like everybody's a color commentator and there needs to be an announcer and a color commentator.
Yeah, there's no play-by-play.
Yep.
Yeah. But, they added Sarah Holcomb for the FPO a few events ago, and she's really good. Mm-hmm. And Jeremy Colling, Big Germ, his color commentary, it's really, really good. And I like him better live than I do on Jomez.
Jomez always messes with my head a little bit. Once I learned it was post-produced, so they when I started, it was like when you find out wrestling is predetermined. It just kind of breaks your heart just a what? It breaks your heart just a little bit, because you're like, oh, I was excited with you, and now I feel silly because you were feigning excitement, and I was genuinely excited.
And there's a couple times, and they try to, and I think they mix it up a good amount too, where
they break that.
There's sometimes where they don't know. And the excitement's legitimate. And you could, if you're watching it every week or and all the practice rounds and everything, you might be able to pick up on it a little bit. But for the most part, those guys, for as hard as they have to work to, the long hours after playing around and on top of everything else, that's insane. Absolutely insane.
Well, you mentioned the holy shot earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when that happened, I was on vacation in New Mexico with my wife, my two youngest boys, and we were in some kind of dust sandstorm driving, couldn't barely see the road. My wife was behind the wheel, and me and each of my kids had our phones, and we were watching, and we saw it live right on the phone. And we're just going crazy. My wife's like, what? Because she can't see because of all the sand and the dust. As soon as the Jomez came out, I wanted to watch it. I wanted to see Jomez, and the coverage on Jomez was pretty genuine, even though they knew it was going to happen.
Of course. It's such an astounding shot. That's one to be excited about twice, for sure.
Yeah. And you know what? When I've watched that documentary or I've watched that Worlds again, it always gives me goosebumps, man.
I was sitting right next to my buddy Patrick while he was deciding what movie him and his fiance were going to watch, and I had it on my phone, and I saw it live, and I was like, "No way!" And they were like, "What?" And I was like, I don't have words. Like, I can't explain to you. You're going to need to give me like an hour to calm down.
Wait, you know how you followed the big tournaments before they had Jomez or before they had the Disc Golf Network or before Terry Miller did his Smashbox? The
DVDs.
PDJ had a thing called dots, right? So you could get on your computer and you could go to the PDGA website during Worlds, and it would show you what the fairway looked like. And each player had a colored dot. You could see where their disc landed just by the dot on the screen. And my first time experiencing that is Sarah Cunningham. Before she was married, she was Sarah Stanhope. The year she won Worlds, she's local to me, so I know Sarah really well. I wanted to see how she was doing at the Worlds, and the only way to follow it was watching the dots on the PDJ website.
My goodness.
Yeah.
And now
could you imagine, Spicy? Could you imagine
live streaming from Rock
sitting
Hill?
there staring at your computer screen, looking at the dots on the screen, trying to figure out what's going on?
When she won the Worlds, I don't remember what time of year it was, but I was at my in-laws' house at a cookout, and I could care less what was going on because I was watching because I wanted to know when she won.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's super exciting. It's just technology and the level of intelligence in the world in general these days is always upsettingly shocking. It's like every time I see something, I'm just like, God, how?
And it wasn't that long ago, dude.
Yeah.
I know.
It wasn't that long ago.
It's bananas.
All right. So can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right. So we're talking about coverage, and you can see on all the whether it's Facebook or Twitter or somewhere else, people talking about we got to get away from the paywall, right? You got to open it up and all that kind of stuff. So I see that you guys don't have full beards, right?
I try.
This is lazy. This is just laziness. Right. I usually am just a mustache guy. I also wasn't expecting to be on camera today, but that's fine. So
when you shave, are you using Barbasol?
No.
I don't use shaving cream.
All right. Well, but if you shave, if we're not using Barbasol, then how can we expect not to have a paywall? Because they're sponsoring the Tour Championship. Every disc golfer should buy Barbasol. Right?
Yeah, of course. Unless there's an allergy or something.
When we get big sponsors and they sponsoring our events, they need to see a bump in their return on investment.
Yeah, of course.
We want to get rid of paywalls. Then all these people that are complaining that we have paywalls start buying the products that are advertised.
Absolutely.
And the other part of it too is when you're paying for the stuff behind the paywall, there is like a legitimate
benefit to it.
There's a benefit, and the product that you're watching is different. Like you can get it for free on YouTube the day after everybody else sees it. But if you want to watch it live, like if I want to watch an NFL football game or Major League Baseball, or you have to have cable, which by the way, you're paying for,
right?
Or you have to pirate it somehow, which is illegal. So sorry, you got to pay to watch disc golf. If you don't want to pay for it, watch it for free the next day with some ads. That argument to me has always been dumb because it's not taking away anything. It's purely adding. There's nothing being taken away from you that you didn't have access to before, and you still get the first round for free on YouTube.
Yeah, it's kind of like the folks that complain about, it was ruined for them because they went on to Facebook.
Yeah,
man, I hate
it's live sports. It like get over.
Yeah, at my office. So today was a busy day, so I did not watch any coverage. But tomorrow, I only got one appointment. The rest of the time, we'll be on the phone. I'm going to have the stream on my computer for the FPO tomorrow, and I'm going to watch it.
I have a second screen set up right here. I'm watching the Simon Cast right now. They got Steve Dodge and Eagle McMahon on. It's great.
Yeah, but that's what you do, and but I literally promote the sport all the time. I mean, all the time.
Same.
One of the things I'm known for in our community is I buy starter sets. And every time I meet people who ask me about the sport, or if I hear someone talking about it, I give them a starter set. Tell them.
Disc Golf Santa.
Disc Golf Santa. Yep. And let me give a shout out to Dynamic Discs. they offered to sell me a bunch of starter packs at wholesale.
Oh, wow.
And so they said they would send me an invoice, and they forgot. And then when they realized they forgot to send me an invoice, they sent me 10 starter sets free.
Oh my gosh.
That's a pretty good deal.
In the back of my truck, I got 10 starter sets. They came in Tuesday. So I'm ready to hand them out when I meet people now.
What is the coolest place in 40 years that you've played? What's the creme de la creme? Like, this is the only place that's left to play, and you get to play there over and over and over again. What's your top of the list?
Boylan Family Farms, Laurel Springs, North Carolina.
Any particular reason why, or just like a?
So Laurel Springs. So have you heard of it?
I have not.
All right. So give you an idea about the magic of Laurel Springs. If you go on and you find some information on Ken Climo, his #1 course he's ever played is Laurel Springs.
Okay.
The Laurel Springs Open up in the mountains of North Carolina was primarily an invite-only disc golf tournament. You had to be invited to play. It was on his private property that was a Christmas tree farm. Hole 1 was on the top of the mountain, and looking down where the two roads intersected for the trucks to go get the trees when they were harvesting, made a big giant X on the bottom of the mountain, and the basket was in the middle of it, and that was hole 1. You can probably look it up online, Laurel Springs disc golf hole 1.
Yeah, no, after we're done today, I will.
You'll find pictures of it. Well, so back, it had to be 1990 or 1991. I'm not sure what year. It might have even been 1989. There was 2 disc golf national publications. There was Disc Golf World News by Rick Rothstein, and there was a publication called the Disc Golf Journal, which was like a newspaper. And Bill Boylan, the owner of Boylan Family Farms, ran advertisements looking for people to come and harvest Christmas trees October, November, and then sell Christmas trees for him in December. I answered the ad, and he hired me, and I drove from Minnesota all the way down to South Carolina to harvest Christmas trees because I wanted to play Laurel Springs, because I was never going to be invited. I wasn't good enough. Right.
Yeah.
And the coolest thing about that, by the way, other than getting a chance to go to Laurel Springs, and once you know Bill, then you're in, right? Then you get a play. Right. My first year driving from Minnesota there, I stopped to play a tournament in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And Bowling Green, Kentucky, Bowling Green, Kentucky is where Scott Stokely was living. And when he realized I was from out of town, he goes, "You got a place to crash?" I said, "Don't come crash at my place." So I crashed at Scott Stokely's place back in the early 90s in Kentucky on my way to South Carolina to get a chance to see the greatest course ever.
That's incredible.
What a story.
Yeah.
I'm like, I threw a good shot in front of Haley King once.
Hey, over the years of watching a lot of events, I've got to meet a lot of great people. I've known John Houck for a long time. I think he's probably the greatest disc golf course designer there is. But several years ago, if this was before your time, you may not remember, the USDGC had a year where they did not do the normal USDGC. They called it the performance standard. So if you look up USDGC performance standard, you will see a lot of hate, right? So all the top players in the world were not at the USDGC because they changed the format. The only players that were there that were big names were the ones sponsored by Innova, because Innova runs the USDGC. I went because I was volunteering, and it was before my time to volunteer. So I was out just walking around the course, and I was watching Dave Wiggins play, because at that time he was the young kid, right? He was still in high school. He was throwing, 700 feet. And I'm watching him. It was like hole 11 or 12. And this guy goes, "You watching Dave?" I said, "I am watching Dave." "Yeah, guy's got quite an arm." So we're walking and talking. I never looked at him. Walked 3 holes with him. Then I realized it was Ken Climo. I was walking and talking to Kim, but I never looked at him because I was paying attention to the golf. And so I had 15, 20 minutes of one-on-one conversation with the king and didn't even know it.
That's the best.
That beats my coolest story about helping players park their cars at MVP last year. So you got me beat by miles.
Yeah. Well, I have volunteered at tournaments being a spotter a number of times. And so I've been able to see a lot of great players come through and play the holes I've been spotting on. And so I've always enjoyed that. And everybody's really nice.
Yeah.
Most players.
The ones that are not are the ones you expect that are not.
Yeah. You're not surprised.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not
surprised that player wasn't very nice. We had an event locally here several years ago that I was spotting on. Mcbeth came and played, Paige Shue came and played, Barry Schultz came and played, Dave Feldberg came and played. And that was fun because they're playing courses that I play.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to spot. Now, granted, you only see them when they're playing the hole you're spotting on, but it's still pretty cool.
Yeah.
To see them have stuff like that and just be able to be in that same vicinity as them.
Benefit of being a cameraman.
Yeah. Now, are you enjoying that?
Oh my God, it's literally the best.
Yeah.
And the fact that I get paid at the end of it makes me laugh every single time because it's like, oh, I'm just hanging out with Kristen Tatar for 18 holes or Paul or Ricky or Yuli. And it's like you said, you don't even really, you didn't realize you were talking to Ken Climo. And it's like, I have to directly stare at them with this piece of equipment. So,
you mentioned Yuli, right? He lives in Rock Hill.
Right.
My oldest son and wife and my grandkids live in Rock Hill. And my son's home course is Boyd Hill. That is Yuli's home course. And it just so happens that the weekend that Yuli got married was the weekend my youngest granddaughter was born. So my wife and I and my youngest son were in Rock Hill for 5 days because we got a new grandbaby on the way. But there was a lot of downtime. So we went to go play Boyd Hill because it was the closest course to my son's house. And the wedding party, the groomsmen's outing was at that course. So there was Ricky Wysocki and there's Yuli, a bunch of other golfers. And they're out there playing their groomsmen thinking we're out there just playing us. And we didn't talk to them or anything, but we saw them and like, that's kind of cool,
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's one of the benefits of living in Phoenix is every pro off season's here. When it's snowing over there, it's, they're all here. And so, also being a professional with that has interacted with them before, it's kind of nice because when I'm out with my daily friends and they're like, oh, what's up, Spicy? And I'm like, it just makes you feel like a child for no reason at all. It's just the best.
So the next time I'm in Arizona, what course do I have to play?
Ooh, I
can't say Vista. You can't not say Vista now. You can't.
No, I can.
Well, I've played 3 courses in Arizona. One in Flagstaff years ago. I don't remember the name of it. And then
McPherson or Tuttle probably.
Yeah,
and then
I have notes somewhere because I journal about all my rounds of new courses. But I played Holbrooks, that golf course, Holbrooks. Yeah, and then I played the 9-hole course up in Page.
Yeah, so you haven't played any of the Phoenix proper courses then. So I would say Vista's one. Fountain is gonna be a must hit when you're here, Fountain Hills.
Okay.
If you're looking for like a hidden gem, I personally enjoy Sunray Park in Ahwatukee. Yeah. The shots are laid out nice. It's a nice, clean park. There's, I love Sunray. I play there all the time when I'm able to. But if you don't hit me up so I can join you for the round, then I'll be pissed.
Yeah, I travel quite a bit. Now, when I go places, I want to play the fun course.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily need the challenge, but my youngest son, he wants to play the most challenging course or layout he can. So like when we do go to visit my son in Rock Hill, he'll want to go play Angry Beaver. And I'd rather go play the Eager Beaver, which is on the same property, just much easier.
Yeah, for sure. So he wants, when you bring him here, he wants Vista XL. That's the challenging course.
Yeah. He'll tell you, my son will tell you he can't even throw 400 feet, but I've caddied for him and I've seen him throw over 500, and be underneath the basket. He's 18 and he can throw a country mile.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to live in Beaufort, by the way. I didn't want to.
Beaufort, South Carolina?
Yeah. Yeah.
My son's girlfriend is going to college next year in Beaufort.
It's a gorgeous city. At least it was when I lived there in 1992. But that's why my dad's in Forrest Gump RV3, because they filmed it in Beaufort. And my dad was friends with the military advisor on the movie, so he got to speak into a couple scenes. Anything you want to wrap up with? Because I think we're getting close to time, and I don't want to cut you off.
Well, no, nothing at all. I mean, I appreciate being on, and I can talk disc golf for hours on end, and
that's why we do this every week.
Yeah. I was considering starting my own podcast because, I spent 25 years in broadcast media and advertising. Mm-hmm. And my first part of my career in broadcast is I was on the radio with a local talk show on politics. And I miss it. So I thought, well, maybe I should start a podcast. But
start a podcast. It's very easy. Start a podcast. Yeah, that's the reason I have it. I was on Sports Talk in Nashville for a couple of years and moved out to Connecticut and have not been able to break into the scene up here yet. So I just do this and I broadcast on Twitch sometimes. But man, it scratches that itch just like perfectly for like missing the broadcasting itch. So I totally get it. Absolutely do it. I'm sure you would outpace us in listeners very quickly.
I don't know if that's true, but the only thing I would like out of other than I enjoy this is Disc Golf Guru is my Twitter name. I would love to get some more followers.
Absolutely. We could definitely make that work.
Yeah. Well, you guys have a great night. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, especially with such short notice. We'll have you on again because I'm sure you got a lot more knowledge to drop. But what was you just want us to call you Guru? I don't think we ever got your name at the beginning.
My name is Adam Wright.
Adam. Thank you.
PDGA 6387.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I played with 1003 last week on Saturday. This last weekend.
Yeah.
1003.
Yeah,
it was insane.
Active in South Carolina. His name is Alan Beaver. He's in the Hall of Fame. He is 1213. The lowest PDJ number I know is a guy in Minnesota. His name is Lyle Jensen. They call him Lightning Lyle. He's probably in his 70s, but he is PDJ number 103.
Wow.
My goodness.
Yeah. But I do like being a 4-digit because people do think it's a cool thing.
It is. It's so cool.
I'm jealous. All right. Well, we'll let you get on.
You guys have a great night. Thank you.
Adam, you were great. Thank you. Man, that was a good one.
What a great guest. I think Shank just needs to not be on this podcast anymore. Great guest. That was so much fun.
Go have more babies or whatever it is your family's doing. Yeah, Adam, I
go follow Disc Golf Guru on Twitter. Help the guy out. He's clearly got some great content.
It was just funny.
And hopefully a podcast.
As the show goes on, I'm sitting here thinking like, we don't know his name. It just I was counting on his name popping up, and I was like, okay, I'll just wait till that, and then it pops up, and I was like, it doesn't say it. It doesn't say it. And then it's been too long. You can't ask now, so I'm glad we got it in at the end. But
yeah,
4-digit PDGA number. Old school discs.
That's the guy.
That's the guy I want to meet around.
There's
Phoenix.
Few people in the sport now that have seen everything.
Mm-hmm.
That guy has seen everything.
Yes, and it's like if you were throwing before baskets existed, I'm never gonna challenge you on anything.
No.
You've earned your stripes.
Yeah, not one time.
All right, dog. I'm gonna eat because I am starving, and I know you got food sitting there staring at you as well. So
I had a bit of it while I was off camera.
Oh, you monster! All right, buddy. Well, until next week.
Do I get to send us out this week?
Yeah, you want to scream?
Ah!